green Gore-Tex jacket and a backpack. I was a guy wearing a T-shirt and a black cap and holding a tan package under my arm. I reversed direction to join the flow of tourists as the group shuffled downhill toward the dock. I smiled at an older lady pulling on the arm of her partner. I said, "Are you with the boat?" She nodded, and I turned away. From the hill, I could see the cruise ship below. In fact, it was visible from almost anywhere in town. I moved down the street, going with the flow, like a paper boat in a rain-swollen gutter. I didn't see the first guy from the diner. He was probably still searching for me further up the hill. A minute later, we passed the guy with the Oxford shirt. He was walking uphill, looking like a kid who had lost his teddy bear. I broke out of the crowd below him and stepped into the shadow of a chartered trips office. I was now a few buildings up from the diner where I'd had that burger, like a full circle. I stayed there for a minute, observing. My baseball cap was pulled low, and I figured with the beard I looked just like any other fisherman in Port Morris. Mid-30s, tall, and jacked from pulling on ropes all season. I hadn't been in shape like that since pararescue indoctrination. I recognized the girl standing on the other side of the road. She hadn't made me. She was blonde, wearing a tourist bucket hat with a Port Morris logo and carrying a bag from the souvenir store, like she was just another tourist. But I was pretty sure that she wasn't just a tourist. I had met her the night before. Chapter 2. The night before, I was in the Porterhouse bar playing pool with Joe Guilfoyle. The Porterhouse is old-school Alaska, burnished wood fixings, everything robust and built to survive the harsh elements, which is to say the weather and the people, and not necessarily in that order. The music was playing from a jukebox. The door opened, and the blonde girl came in. Everyone turned to look at her. That was normal behavior, checking out the newcomer. But when the heads swiveled back on necks, they did so slower than they normally would. There were a couple of reasons for that, the most obvious one being the location and corresponding demographics. Port Morris, Alaska has a year-round population of 5,000 and change, a big town in the southeastern corner of the state. On a very cold and slushy day in February, there might be a 7-to-1 ratio of men to women. In late summer, during salmon season, the population swells by a couple of thousand, and the gender imbalance is more like 200-to-1. So that was one reason why everyone turned to stare at her. The other reason was that she was good-looking. Not good-looking like a cute neighbor, more like special-looking, like a model from the city. The kind of face and figure that people get lost in. Mysterious looks that attract fashion magazines and guys with haircuts and skinny jeans. Photogenic looks that translate weirdly when experienced in 3 dimensions, which made the fact of her very existence in Port Morris something along the lines of a big surprise or an extreme event, like what they call a black swan. The third reason why everyone was looking at her was because she was anxious and in a hurry. By default, most creatures pay attention to rapid movement, and the blonde girl was moving at speed. She came in quietly through the front, kind of hunched over and nervous. By the time she rounded the other side of the bar, she was moving faster. She skirted the outside of the room and hurried into the women's bathroom. A door swung shut behind her. A minute after that, everyone went back to what they were doing, which was playing pool, mouthing off, and drinking beer. In my case, I was drinking a chocolate milkshake. Not because I don't drink beer, only because I hadn't yet finished the chocolate shake I'd ordered with my pot roast at the diner. It was Guilfoyle's shot, and he was a slow shooter. I watched him measure up the geometry and the physics. He had an annoyingly painstaking technique of checking the angles, crouching and peering down the pool stick at the ball, lining it up, squinting, and then calculating the white ball's line to the pocket, and then checking if it was going to hit at an angle likely to scratch, given the inertia and the spin. Besides being the captain of a salmon boat in the summer, Guilfoyle was a physics teacher at a community college back in Seattle. He was still lining up his shot when the giant came in.